Hello, everyone. And I could say welcome to today's presentation, but I don't necessarily know where this presentation is taking place. So my name is Quatez Scott, and I am the intercultural specialist overseeing the Bolinga Black Cultural Resources Center here at Wright State University. And I have the honor and privilege not only of serving in this capacity, but being able to introduce you all to the work that we do inside of the Bolinga Center and to understand how, or at least present how this work is so important to advancing inclusive excellence here at the university. So I think it's always important not to just talk about the Bolinga Center in and of itself, but also the relevance and really providing some historical background to the Bolinga Center in and of itself. So the Bolinga Center is the oldest culture and identity center that we have here at Wright State University. It is now officially 51 years old, so that's a huge kudos to it in and of itself. But the background behind the cultural center in and of itself actually falls on the backdrop of many Black cultural centers in higher education, as well as other cultural centers as well. But in the 1960s, in the late 1960s to the early 1970s, Black student activism was at its peak in higher education, and thus we see this flux of Black cultural centers that come on the rise as students demanded and protested for a lot more advancement and acknowledgement of Black spaces within higher education. At Wright State University, in and of itself, there was a group of students that formed what was called CANE, C-A-N-E. That was the Committee for the Advancement of Negro Education, which then transformed into the Committee for the Advancement of Black Unity, which is KABOO. And then they organized, protests, rallies, and different sit-ins at Wright State University, and really worked with the university administration to essentially promote Black student spaces here at Wright State University. So, among some of the demands for KABOO in and of itself was to rename Hamilton Hall Dr. Arthur E. Thomas Hall, who was a prominent figure here at the university, who was one of the strongest advocates for Black students at the university. Another one of the demands from the students was to hire a full-time recruiter of Black faculty, staff, and students, and to establish a Black Cultural Resources Center. And then last but not least, to for Black students to be included in hiring of university administration and faculty. So to the university's credit, all but one of those demands was met. We still have Hamilton Hall, named Hamilton Hall. We still have that in full operation today. But the university did work with students and one, hiring more faculty and staff of color, particularly Black faculty and staff. They did a better job or enhanced their man, I'm like recording this, but so they enhanced all of their efforts to recruit more Black identified students at the university. And then, of course, we established what is now known as the Bolinga Black Cultural Resources Center. So the purpose of the center is one, to promote an understanding of the culture and heritage of Black Americans, to make easily accessible a variety of resources and materials which could be useful in Black studies, to encourage research which would increase knowledge about Black people or aid in the resolution of problems which have resulted in racial discrimination, prejudice, and slavery. And then last but not least, to work on the advancement of the Black creative arts. So what we're also doing at the university, in addition to what you see there on the screen, is that we're also working more hands-on with our faculty and staff as well. And I'm going to get to some of those efforts because we want to make sure that with all of our culture and identity centers, that these facilities are not just in place to serve our respective student populations, but we also serve as a resource to faculty and staff as well. So just real quickly, going through Bolinga in the early years, there are a lot of great things that took place that are still in operation today here at the university. One is the establishment of more culture-specific activities. Our students in the 70s and 80s did a phenomenal job of bringing in national and prominent speakers who spoke about a lot of different issues pertaining to the Black experience in America. Also, the establishment of a film series. You can see those pictures there on the screen, but one that I love, which is up in that top right corner, is a picture of Maya Angelou, who was on campus here back in the 80s. Black Men on the Move, which is still in operation today. We have the Black Student Union, still in operation today. Black Student Union is referred to as the umbrella organization of our Black student orgs, essentially meaning that you have the Black Student Union, and then they serve to support not only all of our students on campus, but they also work with all of the Black student organizations on campus as well. So a lot of things kind of like filter up and not necessarily operate or run out of the Black Student Union, but you do have the Black Student Union, which is seen as that organization that does work to build connections across all of the Black student organizations, as well as to enhance and promote Black student bodies here on campus and create more Black spaces on campus. The Association of Black Business Students, which is still, again, in operation today. The student chapter of the NAACP, which is, again, still in operation today. And then the Society of Black Engineers and Scientists, as well as the NPHC, that's the National Panhellenic Council, which oversees Black Greek organizations, which are in operation on campus. One of the things that we were fortunate to see, even just this past, I think it was a homecoming weekend, we saw the ribbon cutting of the plots that are sitting outside of University Hall. If you all have not been on campus, I would definitely recommend and highly recommend that you all take the opportunity to stop by and see those plots. It's more of just symbolic gesture of acknowledging these Black Greek organizations which exist here on our university campus, as well as acknowledging the rich history behind all of these organizations, from the national chapters up to the local chapters as well. So some of the scholarships, we do have a lot of scholarships and grants that are offered through the Bolinga Center. This previous year, we were able to award more than $15,000 to our students, but we're looking to also increase how much money we can allocate to students as well. But we have these 5 scholarships that are offered annually to our students. And just to get into the future of the Bolinga Center, because I'm running on 7 minutes, and I was told I only had 5. But one, these are some of the items that are documented inside of the comprehensive strategic plan, which I was able to develop last year within the Bolinga Center, but to increase academic mobility for our students, to enhance the financial assistance that we have. Like I said, we have 5 different scholarships that are run through the Bolinga Center, but we want to make sure that we can advance how much money we're able to allocate to our students, as we have more than 1,100 Black identified students on campus. Identity development is a huge portion of that. Part of that gets to understanding our history as African people, but then also to being able to connect that to our present. Leadership development is one thing that is really important to me. When I was an undergrad, I was a part of 7 different student organizations, and that had a huge impact on my sense of belonging within the university, but then also to helping me to develop the skills that I have even today to not only do the work that I do, but also in my personal life as well. So I want to make sure that we're enhancing and we're introducing students as early on as possible and as often as possible to opportunities to get engaged here at the university. And then last but not least, emotional wellness. So we know that, being a college student is very difficult today, especially now we're in COVID times. So the work that we can do to continue to get to the needs of students on an emotional level, making sure that they're seen here at the university, and make sure that they can be seen by counselors if they find themselves struggling is one thing that's really important. And some other things that I also want to mention that are not specific or that are not noted on here is that we're also, again, working with faculty and staff as well, which is why we have a monthly dialogue series that's working specifically with faculty, staff, and even graduate students, and being able to understand how they are, understanding issues that are affecting Black identified students or Black identified communities, but then also what are some of the steps that we can take to make sure that we are putting services in place to meet the needs of the most disadvantaged communities, and so on and so forth, and understand the culture behind those communities as well. And then another piece of that is working on our data collection and our data analysis to make sure that we are using data to advance the work that we are doing. So some of the current initiatives that we have going on within the Bolinga Center. One is that we're working closely with our admissions office to create direct contacts for admitted students to help move students from the admission to the enrollment piece of it. So we do have nationally as an issue, sometimes we have students that apply and then they get admitted, but then they ultimately don't choose that particular university. So what we want to do is focus on the sense of belonging, not when students get here, but getting them to Wright State University. And then, of course, not only getting them to the university, but how are we getting them through the university? Creating Black at WSU is known as becoming leaders and cultural changers at Wright State University, building on that history that we have of, with Kabu and Kane, but essentially getting students to these places where they're acknowledging some of the national trends and some of the national issues that are going on with issues that are adversely affecting Black communities, but then how we can bring those issues to light here at Wright State University, but then also to work to transform and build people and build young adults who have the capacity to transform those circumstances and those issues as well once they move on from the university. Revamping our transition and orientation welcome programs. So we used to have Pathway to Success and the UGMA program. So we're going to be looking to revamp those programs, which are meant to transition students into the university over the summer and to help them, one, develop the tools and identify the resources available at the university while no one is here. Because it's really difficult once students get here and then it's almost, kind of like you see everything and then they just get their attention just drawn to everything. Attention deficit disorder is what they call it. But we want to make sure when there aren't as many distractors here on campus that students have the opportunities to identify the appropriate resources on campus, to anticipate some of the struggles that they're likely to have, not because it's anything with them, just mostly because typically students themselves will struggle with these things as they transition to universities, regardless of wherever it is that they go. So we want to make sure that students are able to understand that these are going to be some of the challenges that you're going to have as you transition here. And here are the resources that we have to be able to help you. Some of those things being tutoring services, student success coaches, being able to identify where our counseling and wellness services are, being able to connect with your residence life staff and your academic advisors, how to reach out to your professors and different things like that. Creating a student advisory board in the Bolinga Center. So, want to make sure that the work that we're doing in the Bolinga Center isn't necessarily just looked at by myself and me just putting these initiatives out there, but I want to hear from students as well. How can we best serve you all and make sure that your needs are being met? And then working with our African American Alumni Society is a huge portion of that. Sorry, that's like another bullet point down. We have created the Bolinga Talks podcast. So Bolinga Talks stands for Teaching All Lessons Through Critical Conversations. That has been launched. But the purpose behind this podcast in and of itself is to, one, recognize that a lot of times we don't have students that are able to get into the Bolinga Center because they're just so busy. But we have created this podcast, which is able to talk about a lot of the things that we're doing within the Bolinga Center, as well as being able to connect to a library of books that are focused on history, sociology, Black political thought, and children's books as well. So it's a really, really cool podcast. I definitely recommend that you all check that out. As I was going with, our African American Alumni Society has established the Sapphire Jubilee, which takes place every year. It's the central fundraiser that takes place at the university each year, typically during homecoming weekend, in which this group of folks, wonderful folks, raise thousands of dollars each year to contribute toward not only just student scholarships, but ways to support our students in other avenues as well. So this previous year, we were able to establish 2 new awards. One of them is the Lifetime Achievement Award. The next one is the Carolyn E. Wright Service Award. And then this year, we're looking to put in the Emerging Young Alumni Awards. And then last but not least, focus on the 4 R's. So the university-wise, President Sue has she has the 3 R's, which is recruitment, retention, and relationships. And in the Bolinga Center, we want to focus on that last R, which is release. So not only how are we focusing on the ways that we recruit students, But the retention, of course, getting students through the university, building relationships and making sure that that sense of belonging is really high at the university. We want our students to be proud once they graduate from here and know that they are Raiders for life, and being able to communicate that wherever it is that they go. But then that release part is really important. Who are the students that we are releasing? How have we equipped them to face all of life's challenges, to face all of the daunting things in life, and how are we equipping them to be the best people that they can possibly be? So that's one of the things that we're focusing on with that last R. So if you have any questions for me, here is my contact information. I apologize, Matt. I'm going to say that right now. I went about 10 minutes over. But if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. My name is Quatez Scott. Once again, and you can contact me via email at quatez.scott@wright.edu. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to talking to you soon, and enjoy the rest of your time.